An enchanting and glorious little piece by Ravel, the Pavane for a Dead Princess. I'll begin by playing through the first segment of music for you, and then we'll go through it bit by bit, and I'll give you the whole piece, little by little, so that you can learn it yourself. Thank you, Alexander, for the commission. So to begin, we should first take account of the fact that there are 3 distinct layers, 2 layers in the right hand for the most part, and 1 layer in the left. And one thing that's worth noting here is that though this piece was written originally for piano, he soon after orchestrated it. Ravel himself orchestrated it and wrote it for an orchestra. And to my ear, this is very evident even in the version that I have here. The original piano version still to me sounds as though he was already envisioning an orchestra in his mind. Right, in the top, we have the melody, that much is clear. Below that, we have the plucks of maybe the strings. And in the bass, we have the plucks of the double basses. And so as we go through this piece, occasionally I'm going to mention and sort of compare and tie all of these layers and their aesthetics and the way that they're written to the orchestra. Because as you're playing this, I think it's very helpful to try and invoke the sense and the feeling and the sonority of an orchestra in your own playing. That'll give it the most breadth and it'll give it the most color. So let's begin now. Melody first, let's handle that. A 4 to start. Long 4, don't worry about the counts for now, we'll do that later. 5, 4 drops to F sharp. Everything is connected. To 3. From here, the 3 lifts and arrives on a D. Slide up the key just a little bit. Then moving on. 4, 5. And then back the same way, 5, 4, 4. Once more, all stitched up. Bum, bum, bum. Like that. Take a few moments and learn that well. And as you're learning it, one thing I want you to try and keep in mind is that obviously you're going to be connecting as much as possible. Some moments, like the 3 going from E to D, you can't connect that, because it's the same fingering, but everywhere else where you can connect, you should connect. And when you're connecting, moving from 4 to 5, from 5 to 4, instead of thinking about each of these as a little island of movements, like this is one thing, and then this is another thing, and this is another thing, what I want you to try and do as much as possible is feel as though the weight first sits on the note that you're on, and then it shifts, that weight shifts from this note that you're on to the next one, and then to the next one, and then to the next one. So you're not really resetting on all of these. Instead, you're shifting the weight of your arm from note to note. That's really important. That'll give you the smoothest, roundest sound and the most elegant legato. With that in mind, now let's have a look at the second layer, this. Now you will be using the pedal, but to start, we're going to learn it dry. Important to notice here also is that these notes are portamento. So they're not legato, right? They're not connected, nor are they staccato. they're not so sharp either. They're kind of somewhere in between. That's what gives the piece this kind of gait, this kind of walking pace. After all, this is a pavane. A pavane is a dance in two, and these you can consider as kind of like steps or beats. Elegant, soft, something to keep in mind. Okay, the notes now. So, as you've seen, 1, 2, twice. Then 1, 3, twice. Into the next bar we go. 1, 2, twice. And the thumb drops, or rises, I suppose, to a G. And then 2 of these. Light, effortless. Allow the wrist to breathe. You're going to be doing something contradictory here. For this layer, it's very clear that each of these has its own movement, its own breath, while above, all of these notes are strung together, as I said, without individual movements. That's just something that you're going to eventually learn to put together. Once you've learned all of that, we can now align the 2 layers. 4 and 1. And you'll see that while you're holding this 4, the notes below play their little seesaw back and forth. Moving on. Thumb still holding in the 4, and then 3 and 5. That's our next alignment. Put that together. Like that. Next, as you know, the bottom is portamento, so you lift while still holding the melody above. Then you connect 5 to 4 and 1. Lift the thumb, hold the 4. And now this E is both melodic and accompaniment, right? So in the bottom layer you had there, ending on this E. And in the top we had also ending on this E. So they kind of overlap there. But because the melodic section is more important, of course, you're going to emphasize this E as a melody as opposed to accompaniment. Putting all that together now. And you'll notice that the difficulty here is going to be in making sure that one layer doesn't lift and the other one does, right? That's an important distinction here. So the bottom is lifting constantly. While the top layer is not. Moving on. The 3 lifts and arrives in the next bar. So here in the right hand we have in the top layer, that's that. And in the bottom layer, that. So when you put that together, here's your first step here. Moving on. Both of the voices lift now and arrive here, G and F sharp. One more time. The whole bar now. I'm being very cautious to give you every single detail here. And as we go forward, it's going to move a little faster as we go through this. But initially, I have to give you every single detail so that when they do repeat themselves, and the piece does repeat plenty, you know how to handle all of those details. Okay, let's put all of that together, both of the bars. Now what you'll notice is that the next stage in this difficulty here is going to be in differentiating the volumes between the two layers. The melody must stand in pretty stark contrast to the quiet, gentle steps of the layer down below. So that is a difficult, it's a tall order for anybody, but especially for those who are not so confident and familiar with voicing their playing. So here's what I would recommend if you're in that camp. You know that your goal is going to be to make sure that the melody is louder than the accompaniment, obviously. If you're seeking to achieve, let's say, a differential of, I don't know, let's say 40 and 60, or maybe let's say twice the volume, just for simplicity's sake, right? You want the melody to be twice as loud as the accompaniment down below. Then what I would suggest to do as a matter of practice is to exaggerate that and make it 4 times louder. Make it into a caricature. You can think of this as being something synonymous or analogous to bending a piece of plastic, right? If the natural state of your hand is that all the notes that you play kind of want to naturally just play at the same volume because that's the easy thing to do. So by default, all of these notes are going to want to sound roughly the same, but that'll sound ultra clumsy. If your next step is then to try and practice it as you would like it to be, meaning twice as loud in the top layer versus the bottom layer, then there's going to be a natural kind of regression to the default. Kind of like, as I said, if you bend a piece of plastic, if you bend it a little bit, it'll come back to its original shape, right? It'll be elastic deformation. It'll bend a little bit, you let it go, and it'll come back to its default. If you want to practice in such a way where you basically want to bend this plastic past a certain point where it becomes plastic deformation so that when you let it go, it comes back towards its default, but it doesn't go all the way back to its default because you've now deformed it in such a way that it's now permanently unable to get back to where it was originally. So by analogy, when you're practicing this, instead of practicing the way you would like it to sound, exaggerate those differences, make it 4 times louder in the top than the bottom. And then once you can do that, suddenly you'll find that playing, making these voicings just twice the volume is substantially easier to do. So the practice should be as such, right? The top line is really loud, while the bottom one is nearly imperceptible. Do that a whole bunch of times, get comfortable with it, and then once you feel like you've gotten a hang of it, then allow yourself to paint the music as you would like it to be. Let's say twice the volume in the top line than in the bottom line. And then suddenly you'll find it's much easier to get the right kind of balance. So that form of practice you should do throughout this whole piece. I won't mention it again. I'm giving it to you now, and you should always come back to it as you learn more and more of this piece. At every point where you have a very clear difference in volume within one hand, exaggerate that ad nauseum into a form of caricature, and then allow it to draw back naturally, allow the plastic to come back into its new form, which will be something much closer to what you actually want. Okay. Assuming now that we've learned these 2 bars well, we can have a look at the left hand. 2, 5, 1. Next. 5, 2, 5, 1. Simple enough. So these are really just plucks in the double basses. And maybe the cellos as well. And when you put this together, I would suggest using the pedal. Right? It's up to you. You can decide what kind of pedal you like, but I'm going to show it to you the way that I like to hear it. And I use plenty of pedal here. Here is where the alignments are. There's our first alignment. So we open with just the right hand, and then the left hand comes in. Next. That's our next moment. Next, 4 on F sharp, left hand rises to E. And there's your first full bar. Next, find your position, 1 and 3, left hand down to D. Next. So that's pretty easy. Seems like the left hand has 1 note for every 2 in the right hand. Next, find the position E and D, right hand G and F sharp. There you have it. One more time now, all stitched up. Incredible color, isn't it? Just unreal how good he is at writing harmonies and melodies together. It's so good. Unreal. Okay, now as we move into the next bar, I'm going to move a little bit faster because I've shown you how to learn each of these layers, so I'm just going to give them to you a little bit more frankly, and we'll move through it a little bit more with a bit more speed. But I think that's pretty good. Moving forward, you can find the rest of this piece in my library. So come along and join me, and let's continue into part 2. See you in just a moment.